Will instituting more gun control laws make criminals decide to just start following the laws? We're all impacted by legislature imposed by the government, and new gun control laws will not fix crime and violence in the US. We're all able to be in situations that could require a hero's intervention or the use of self defense, and it is our right as Americans to own guns, and public opinion is starting to show this. Um, I personally grew up learning about being around guns, respecting them, knowing how to be safe with them. As an adult, I keep up on the news, the statistics, and I'm actually have my permit to carry. So the current gun control laws are more than sufficient. Problem is they're not properly enforced. Adding more new restrictive legislature taking our rights away as American citizens to own guns is not a solution. It will not lower crime or increase our safety. It may actually do the opposite. So we are made to think by the media that the US is in a terrible state. There's tragedy, mass shootings all the time, and the relaxed gun laws are the cause of this. And this is untrue. Violence can happen regardless, and we need to be aware of that. First, I'm going to show how media might have its own agenda, showing us how bad things are, which is not entirely true. Next, I'll look into facts related to gun ownership and crime and how they relate. And finally, I'll explain that adding new laws would be ineffective when the current laws are not enforced and criminals don't follow the laws anyways. The media cannot always be trusted. They do have their own agenda, and like any other source, they should be critiqued and analyzed for the truth and what they actually think is happening. So the media and anti-gun advocates would lead us to believe that the U.S. has a huge rate of death and mass public shootings, and it's all the fault of the guns, and taking them all away would fix this. This really is not true. There are many other countries that have much more strict laws or complete bans on guns, and violence still happens. According to the Crime Prevention Research Center's 2015 article, which compared shootings in the US and Canada to those in Europe from 2009 to 2015, showed that Belgium, which has much more strict laws, actually ranks higher in the death rate per million and frequency of mass public shootings. They are eighth in both categories, whereas the US is 11th and 12th. Another example is in Europe is France. They have almost a complete ban on guns. The only way that you can get a gun there is for hunting, and there is a really long and difficult licensing procedure, so not a whole lot of people even go through it. They actually rank third in the death rates, which is extremely higher than the US. And none of this takes into account when people who don't have guns resort to bombs or other means, for example. Media will also like us to believe that most people are against guns. We can see from a Roper poll that over time, people have become more opposed to stricter gun laws, and those in favor of stricter gun laws has actually decreased. There are some instances where mass shootings occurred that spikes in the other direction happen, but the trend shows that more and more people are in favor of gun ownership. So, can't always trust the media, but let's actually look at some facts of what more guns actually means. And it does not mean more crime. Findings are showing that these two are not always related. According to a 2015 Washington Times article by Howell, The number of concealed handgun permits has increased by about 8 million over a 3-year span, and during this time, the murder rates across the country actually dropped by 25%. So more legal ownership of guns does not equal more crime. So let's take a look at some of the laws that are already in place and how they are effective and ineffective. The current laws are not effective because they are not enforced, and kind of by definition, criminals are not going to follow the laws anyways. Some countries that have instituted complete bans on guns have actually seen the opposite with a huge increase in murder rates. So we can see here in Ireland and Jamaica, when gun bans were instituted, there was actually a dramatic spike in murders, and then afterwards the trend of murders continued to increase. So taking away guns and banning them from legal ownership does not stop the criminals from getting on the black market or stealing or acquiring them in other ways and still committing crimes. Also, the current laws in this country are not enforced properly. According to a 2016 CNN article by Copan, there's just a lack of funding to the ATF and law enforcement officials, which makes it hard to prosecute gun crimes. Only 2% of federal gun crimes were prosecuted, and 85% of those were for possession of a firearm by a felon or while they were committing another crime. Also, according to the Mike Network and a Gun Control Facts article, in 2007, there was the NICS Improvement Act, which is NICS is the background system check for procuring guns. The act set up incentives for states, giving them money to improve the reporting of mental health and criminal records to help prevent gun sales to those that could not and should not legally have them. This act actually only paid out 5% of the authorized amount, and the states just haven't done anything to improve the current system in place. So the media has their own agenda, cannot always be trusted. When there's a tragedy, it's just kind of forced into our faces to try and sway us the other way. But more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens does not mean that there's going to be more crime. Banning guns completely can actually increase murder rates, and we are not enforcing the laws that we currently have, so it just makes sense that throwing more laws into legislature is not going to have an impact. It's not going to make things any better. We just need to enforce the laws that we have to keep people safe. And no one wants to see others hurt by guns and violence, but nobody can wave a magic wand and make all the guns disappear. Taking guns away from the law-abiding and responsible people who could stop violence, protect their families, and have a right as American citizens to do so is just not a solution. So I want to thank you for your time and attention, and please make your support for the Second Amendment and gun ownership known by emailing, writing, calling, just contacting your state representatives and letting them know your feelings on this issue. Thank you.